The village of Whisperwind clung to the sheer, grey shoulders of Mount Cinder like a handful of spilled pearls. Perched high in the Ethelgard Mountains, its houses were carved directly into the living rock, their timbered fronts weathered by the relentless clean wind that gave the village its name. Below, the world stretched out in a dizzying tapestry of pine forests, mist-shrouded valleys, and distant, silver ribbons of river. Above, the sky was a deep, unending indigo, especially after the sun had dipped behind the highest peaks, leaving the air crisp and infused with the scent of ancient stone and hardy mountain flora. Lyra knew the stars of Whisperwind better than she knew the faces of half the villagers. Her grandmother, Elara, used to say that the stars were the eyes of the ancestors, watching over them, guiding their paths, and whispering secrets to those who knew how to listen. Lyra, with her wide, inquisitive eyes and a spirit that often felt too big for her small frame, spent countless nights on their small rock-hewn balcony, wrapped in a thick wool blanket, listening. The stars in Whisperwind were not merely distant pinpricks of light. Here, at the roof of the world, they blazed with an intensity that defied explanation. Each one seemed to pulse with its own unique fire, a living ember in the vast cosmic hearth. The constellations were not just patterns. There were stories etched in diamonds, tales of the sky serpent, the mountain giant, the weeping willow, and the elusive starhound, whose bark was the distant rumble of thunder. Lyra was 10 years old, with hair the color of twilight shadows and eyes that held the deep, reflective pools of a mountain lake. She wasn't like the other children, who chased hardy mountain goats or practiced their rock-climbing skills on the less treacherous slopes. Lyra preferred the quiet companionship of the ancient stones and the boundless expanse of the night sky. She would often sketch the star maps her grandmother taught her, not just charting their positions, but trying to capture the feeling of their glow, the subtle shifts in their color, the silent song she sometimes felt humming in her bones. Grandmother Elara, with her silver braids and eyes that crinkled at the corners from years of smiling and squinting at distant horizons, understood Lyra more than anyone. She was the village lawkeeper, the one who remembered the old ways, the ancient chants, and the true names of the stars. Each star, Lyra child, Elara would often say, her voice like the rustle of dry leaves, has a heart. And sometimes a heart grows too full, or too weary, and it sheds a tear. These tears are what we call shooting stars, but they are far, far more than simple light trails. One particular star held a special place in Lyra's own heart. It was a singular, brilliant, sapphire blue star that seemed to hang lower than the others, just above the jagged silhouette of the Dragon's Tooth Peak. It didn't have a grand name in the village lore. Lyra simply called it the Watcher. It was the first star she looked for each night, and the last to fade with the coming dawn. It felt like a silent companion, a steady, unwavering presence in her often solitary world. The night it happened began like any other. The wind sang its usual lullaby through the chimes hanging from their eaves, and the air was sharp with the scent of pine and frost. Lyra, bundled in her thickest cloak, was on her balcony, her sketchbook open on her lap, dot away. Her gaze, as always, drifted to the Watcher. But tonight, the Watcher was different. It wasn't just its usual sapphire glow. Tonight, it pulsed. A slow, rhythmic throb, like a heartbeat. Thrum, thrum, thrum. Lyra felt it in her own chest, a sympathetic vibration. She blinked, rubbed her eyes, wondering if the cold was playing tricks on her vision. But no, the Watcher continued its unusual dance. Its blue light intensified with each pulse, then receded, only to surge again, brighter and more insistent than before. Then, a flicker. A tiny, almost imperceptible waver in its steady position. It was as if the star itself had shivered. Lyra gasped, her breath frosting in the frigid air. She had never seen anything like it. She clutched her sketchbook, her fingers suddenly cold despite the thick wool. The pulsing grew more rapid, more frantic. The blue light flared, washing out the surrounding stars for a moment, then dimmed to an angry, smoldering ember. It looked like a living thing in distress. Lyra felt a pang of profound worry, a strange, empathetic ache in her stomach. What's happening? She thought, her voice caught in her throat. Suddenly, with a soundless, spectacular burst, the Watcher seemed to fragment. It wasn't an explosion, not truly. It was more like a delicate flower shedding its petals in a slow, luminous cascade. Dozens, then hundreds of tiny glowing motes of sapphire light detached themselves from the star's core, drifting downwards in a silent, ethereal rain. They weren't shooting stars. They were eye-falling stars, a gentle, mournful shower of starlight. Most of them dissipated into glittering dust long before they reached the lower atmosphere, vanishing like dreams at dawn. But Lyra, watching with bated breath, saw one particular fragment. It was larger than the others, a piece of the Watcher's heart, still burning with that intense sapphire glow. It plummeted, not towards the distant valleys, but directly towards the peaks surrounding Whisperwind. It grew brighter and brighter, a falling tier of pure, concentrated starlight, until it vanished behind the jagged ridge of the sleeping giant, the highest peak directly behind their village. A profound silence descended upon Whisperwind, a stillness deeper than the usual mountain quiet. The wind itself seemed to hold its breath. Lyra could hear her own heart hammering against her ribs, a frantic counterpoint to the cosmic drama she had just witnessed. She knew with an absolute certainty that resonated in every fiber of her being, that this was no ordinary phenomenon. The Watcher had not simply shed a tear, it had given something of itself, and that something had fallen onto their mountain. She glanced towards the other houses, their windows dark. Had anyone else seen it? How? She strained her ears, listening for the murmurs of waking villagers, the hurried footsteps of those who might investigate. But there was nothing. Only the persistent rhythmic hum of the wind chimes. Perhaps in their deep slumber, the villagers had missed the silent spectacle. Perhaps only Lyra, the child who listened to the stars, had been truly watching. A burning curiosity, mingled with a fierce sense of urgency, seized her. She had to find it. She had to see what had fallen, this piece of her Watcher star. It felt like a summons, a direct call that bypassed her ears and went straight to her soul. Carefully, so as not to wake her grandmother, Lyra slipped back inside. The small, warm room was filled with the scent of dried herbs and old books. Elara was sleeping soundly in her bed of furs, her breathing soft and even. Lyra pulled on her thickest boots, grabbed her small but sturdy climbing pack, a gift from her father before he left on a trading journey to the lowlands, and checked its contents: a small oil lamp, a flint and steel, a pouch of dried berries and nuts, and a coil of thin, strong rope. She was always prepared for an unexpected adventure, a habit instilled by her grandmother's tales of daring explorers and brave starseers. Her heart pounded with a mixture of fear and exhilaration. The sleeping giant was a treacherous peak, even by daylight. Its slopes were riddled with hidden crevices, loose scree, and sudden, dizzying drops. To climb it at night was madness. But the pull of the fallen star fragment was irresistible. It felt like a destiny, a thread spun just for her. She scribbled a quick note on a scrap of parchment, leaving it on her grandmother's bedside table. "You're going to look for something. Be back before dawn. Don't worry, Nye." She knew Elara would worry regardless, but it was the best she could do. The cold hit her like a physical blow as she stepped out of their door. The moon, a sliver of silver, cast long, distorted shadows across the village square. The houses, normally welcoming, now looked like sleeping giants, their dark windows like closed eyes. Lyra moved swiftly, her soft-soled boots making barely a sound on the frozen earth. She passed the communal well, its bucket glinting with a layer of ice, and skirted the edge of the market square, where the stalls lay dormant, their wares covered against the night chill. Soon, she was beyond the last dwelling, on the winding rocky path that led up towards the higher, wilder reaches of Mount Cinder. The path quickly dissolved into a scramble of boulders and loose shale. Lyra was nimble, accustomed to the challenging terrain. She moved with a silent grace that belied her age, her hands finding purchase on rough rock, her feet testing each step before committing her weight. The air grew thinner, colder. Her breath plumed in frosty clouds before her. She kept her eyes fixed on the point where the star fragment had vanished, a point just beyond the looming dark mass of the sleeping giant. She knew the general direction, but finding a tiny fallen object in this vast broken landscape would be like finding a needle in a mountain of needles. But as she climbed higher, a faint, ethereal glow began to emanate from beyond the ridge. It was a soft, sapphire light, pulsating gently, just as the Watcher had pulsed before its fragmentation. It was a beacon, a guide in the overwhelming darkness. "It's waiting for me," Lyra whispered, a thrill running through her veins. The climb became steeper, the rock faces more sheer. She had to use her rope once, securing it to a sturdy outcrop and rappelling down a short, slippery drop. Her muscles ached, and her fingers were numb with cold, but the light ahead spurred her onward. The glow grew stronger, casting the surrounding rock formations in an otherworldly blue sheen. It painted the ancient, gnarled junipers and the spires of ice-covered stone with an unearthly beauty. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, she crested the ridge. The wind howled savagely here, whipping her cloak around her and biting at her exposed skin. But the sight that greeted her stole her breath, banishing the cold and the exhaustion. In a small sheltered hollow, cradled amongst jagged, snow-dusted rocks, lay the star fragment. It wasn't a meteor, not a jagged chunk of rock. It was a perfect, multifaceted crystal, about the size of her fist, glowing with an intense living sapphire light. It hummed, a low, resonant thrum that vibrated through the very ground beneath her feet and up into her bones. The air around it shimmered, visibly distorted by its energy. It was beautiful, terrifying, and utterly captivating. The crystal was not hot, as one might expect from something that had fallen from a star. Instead, it radiated a gentle, comforting warmth, like sun-warmed stone on a cool day. It pulsed with that same rhythmic beat, thrum, 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 a steady, deep cadence that spoke of ancient power and unimaginable distances. Lyra approached it cautiously, her heart a drum against her ribs. She knelt down, reaching out a trembling hand. The light seemed to beckon her, to draw her in. As her fingertips brushed against its smooth, cool surface, a jolt of energy surged through her arm, up to her shoulder, and spread like wildfire through her entire body. It wasn't painful, but it was overwhelmingly intense, a sensation of being utterly alive, connected to something vast and immeasurable. And then, a vision. It was fleeting, a kaleidoscope of images that flashed through her mind faster than thought. She saw the Watcher star, not as a distant light, but as a colossal, living entity, its surface swirling with cosmic energies, its core a furnace of creation. She saw other stars, a million distant suns, each a unique jewel in the cosmic tapestry. She saw nebulae blooming like celestial flowers, galaxies spinning like cosmic dancers. And within it all, a faint, echoing melody, a song of pure starlight, ancient and profound, that seemed to whisper of purpose, of destiny, of a grand, intricate design. The vision faded as quickly as it came, leaving Lyra breathless, her hand still resting on the cool, humming crystal. Tears pricked at her eyes, not from sadness, but from the sheer, overwhelming beauty and wonder of what she had just experienced. She felt small, insignificant, and yet, paradoxically, incredibly important, as if she had just touched the very fabric of existence. The star crystal, she thought. That's what it was. A star crystal. She carefully withdrew her hand, the lingering tingle a testament to the brief communion. The crystal continued to glow, its light a steady pulse now, no longer frantic. It seemed calmer, as if it had found what it was looking for. Or perhaps, as if Aisha had found what Witty was looking for. Lyra knew, with another flash of certainty, that she couldn't leave it here. This was no ordinary stone to be weathered by wind and snow. This was a piece of the Watcher, a fragment of pure starlight, and it felt like it belonged with her. It felt like it chose her. She carefully unwrapped the thick felt lining from her climbing pack. It was meant to protect her oil lamp, but it would serve a better purpose now. With utmost care, she cradled the star crystal in her hands. It was surprisingly light, despite its size, as if its true weight was not of matter, but of pure energy. She placed it gently into the felt, then into her pack, nestling it deep among her emergency supplies. Even muffled by the felt and the canvas of her pack, a soft ethereal blue glow emanated, a warm pulse against her back. The journey back was different. The cold no longer seemed to bite as fiercely. The wind, which had humanely howled with such ferocity, now felt like a gentle caress. The path, which had seemed so treacherous on the ascent, now felt almost familiar, as if the crystal itself was subtly guiding her steps. The world around her seemed sharper, more vibrant, illuminated not just by the sliver of moon, but by an inner light, a new awareness that the star crystal had awakened within her. She moved with renewed purpose, her exhaustion forgotten. The hum against her back was a constant, comforting presence. It felt like a secret, a profound connection that only she and the star crystal shared. She knew she couldn't tell just anyone about this. The villagers, for all their reverence for the stars, also held a healthy fear of the unknown, of things that broke the natural order. A piece of a fallen star, still glowing and pulsing, might be seen as a source of immense power, or a terrible omen, or even a danger. No, she would have to be careful. She would tell Elara. Her grandmother, the lore keeper, with her deep understanding of cosmic mysteries, would know what to do, or at least how to begin to understand. The first faint blush of dawn was painting the eastern sky in hues of rose and gold, as Lyra slipped back into Whisperwind. The village was still asleep, a peaceful huddle of stone and timber against the waking world. She moved like a shadow, swift and silent, until she reached the familiar door of their home. She closed the door behind her with a soft click, her heart still thrumming with the crystal's energy. The scent of dried herbs and wood smoke was a welcoming embrace. Elara was still asleep, a gentle snore escaping her lips. Lyra carefully took off her boots, set her pack down, and then, with a deep breath, reached for the star crystal. She pulled it out, unwrapping it from the felt. The sapphire light filled the small room, casting long, dancing shadows on the walls. It pulsed, brighter now, as if sensing its return to warmth and safety. It seemed to sing a silent, joyous song. Lyra? Her grandmother's voice, soft with sleep, made her jump. Elara was sitting up in bed, her silver braids askew, her eyes open and surprisingly alert. She had seen the light. Her gaze fell upon the glowing crystal in Lyra's hands, and her eyes, usually so calm, widened with a mixture of awe and profound understanding. "Lyra, child," Elara whispered, her voice barely audible. "What have you found?" The star crystal pulsed in Lyra's hands, its light illuminating the wonder and the dawning realization on her grandmother's face. The melody she had heard in her vision seemed to echo in the quiet room, a silent promise of adventure yet to come. Lyra looked at her grandmother, then down at the radiant crystal, a new chapter of her life unfurling before her, bright and full of starlight. Lyra looked at her grandmother, then down at the radiant crystal, a new chapter of her life unfurling before her, bright and full of starlight. I saw threads, Grandma," Lyra began, her voice still laced with the echoes of wonder. Shimmering, impossibly fine threads woven through everything. Through the air, the walls, even through Wame. And then I saw a great loom. Not like the one in the village, but vast, stretching beyond the stars, humming with light. It was weaving all the threads, binding everything together. And there was a melody, a song that filled the emptiness, a song of creation and connection. She paused, struggling to put the overwhelming sensation into words. It was like seeing the world's true heart, Grandma, and the crystal, it seemed to sing along with the melody. Elara's gaze softened, her eyes, ancient and knowing, reflecting the crystal's glow. She reached out, her gnarled fingers gently touching the star crystal as it rested in Lyra's palms. It pulsed warmly under her touch, as if recognizing an old friend. "The loom of starlight," Elara whispered, a reverence in her tone that Lyra had rarely heard. "And the song of the weave. You have seen the very fabric of existence, Lyra, child, and you have heard its music." She looked up, her gaze meeting Lyra's with a profound solemnity. "This is no mere crystal, my dear. It is a heartstone, a shard of the primordial light that first spun the universe into being, a fragment that listens to the great weave and echoes its song. It has chosen you, Lyra, just as it chose your mother, and her mother before her, and many more in the generations long past." Lyra's breath hitched. "My mother? And you, Grandma? You've held it? You've heard the song?" A faint, wistful smile touched Elara's lips. "I held it, yes. And for a fleeting moment as a young girl I heard a whisper of the song, but it never truly awakened for me, not as it has for you. It shone, but it did not sing. Your mother, she heard it, Lyra. She heard it, Lyra. She saw the threads just as you have. She was a weaver of fate, a star-seeker destined to walk paths unseen by others." "A star-seeker?" Lyra echoed, the words feeling weighty and important. "One who hears the song of the weave," and whose heart is brave enough to answer its call," Elara explained. "The great weave is not always perfect, Lyra. Sometimes a thread frays, a color fades, a note falls silent. When the balance trembles, when the harmony falters, the heartstone awakens, seeking a hand to guide it, an ear to hear the song's troubled whisper. The melody you heard, Lyra, it was not merely a song of creation, it was a plea." The star crystal seemed to shimmer in agreement, its light intensifying, casting dancing shadows across the room. Lyra felt a prickle of unease, a shift from wonder to responsibility. "A plea? What kind of plea, Grandma?" Elara sighed, her gaze distant, as if peering into the mists of time. "A plea for a missing note, Lyra, a lost harmony. For generations our family has guarded the heartstone, waiting for the one whose spirit would resonate with the deepest strains of the weave. Your vision, Lyra, it was a glimpse of the cosmic symphony, and within it, a specific strain, a call. It is a call to mend what is broken, to reweave what has unraveled. There is a place, a point in the weave, what has unraveled. There is a place, a point in the weave, where the melody has fallen." Lyra clutched the crystal tighter, its warmth spreading through her hands, up her arms, settling in her chest. The melody she had heard, so beautiful and full of light, now seemed to carry an underlying current of sorrow, a quiet urgency. "What do I need to do?" she asked, her voice firm despite the tremor in her heart. Elara nodded, a flicker of pride in her eyes. "You must listen to the heartstone, Lyra. It will show you the way. It will lead you to the place where the song of the weave is faltering. It will guide you to find the missing note." She rose slowly, her movements deliberate, and walked to an old carved wooden chest in the corner of the room. It was something Lyra had always seen, but never paid much attention to. Elara opened it, revealing not clothes or trinkets, but a collection of ancient scrolls, faded maps, and a leather-bound journal. "This is the legacy of the Star Seekers," Elara said, her voice soft. "Tales of journeys, riddles, and warnings. Your mother kept her own journey here too, but this..." She pulled out a single, rolled parchment, yellowed with age, secured with a silver ribbon. "This is the Elder Map. It speaks of places known only to the weave, places that shift and hide from mortal eyes. The heartstone will reveal its true paths." She unrolled the map carefully on the small table. It wasn't like any map Lyra had ever seen. There were no clear rivers or mountains, no familiar village names. Instead, it was a swirl of shimmering lines, faint symbols, and constellations that didn't quite match the night sky. It looked like a dream rendered in ink. "Place the heartstone upon it, Lyra child," Elara instructed. Lyra, still holding the pulsing star crystal, gently laid it in the center of the Elder Map. As soon as it touched the parchment, the map seemed to come alive. The faint lines on the paper glowed with a soft internal luminescence, and then, slowly, one particular path began to brighten, drawing a clear, shimmering route through the ethereal landscape. It led away from a symbol that Lyra recognized as their village, a small, star-shaped cluster of lights, towards a region marked by swirling mists and towering, jagged peaks. The peaks were depicted not as solid rock, but as crystalline formations, almost like frozen starlight. "The Whispering Peaks," Elara breathed, her finger tracing the glowing path. "A place of ancient magic where the veil between worlds is thin. It is said that the wind carries the very whispers of the weave there. This is where your journey begins, Lyra." Lyra's gaze followed the path, her heart thrumming with a mixture of fear and exhilarating anticipation. The glowing trail seemed to beckon her, a silent promise of adventure. "What will I find there?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. "That, my dear, only the heartstone and the weave can tell you," Elara replied, her eyes twinkling. "But you must be ready. The path of a star seeker is not an easy one. It requires courage, wisdom, and an unwavering belief in the magic that binds us all." The night deepened outside, the village settling into a quiet slumber. But in Elara's small cottage, a new dawn was breaking for Lyra. "I will be ready, Grandma," she said, her voice clear and strong, the star crystal glowing steadily in her hands, mirroring the resolve in her heart. "I will follow the song." Ah. The next morning the village was still awakening as Lyra prepared for her journey. Elara had packed a small satchel for her, dried fruit, a loaf of hearth bread, a water skin, a warm cloak woven with protective charms, and a small smooth river stone that Elara said would remind her of home. Most importantly, the elder map, now rolled carefully and tucked into a waterproof leather case, and the star crystal, which Lyra wore close to her heart in a small soft pouch, its warmth a constant, reassuring presence. "Remember, Lyra," Elara had said as they stood at the edge of the village, just where the familiar path turned into the ancient forest. "The weave speaks in many tongues, not just in melodies but in the rustle of leaves, the glint of sunlight on water, the flight of a bird. Listen with your heart, not just your ears, and trust the heartstone. It is an extension of your own spirit now." Lyra hugged her grandmother tightly, feeling the frail strength in Elara's embrace. "I will, Grandma. I promise." With a final loving squeeze, Lyra turned and stepped onto the forest path. The air was cool and crisp, carrying the scent of damp earth and pine. The familiar trees, which she had played among as a child, now seemed different, imbued with a new significance. She saw the shimmering threads, faint but undeniably present, weaving through the branches, connecting leaf to leaf, tree to sky. The world was no longer just a collection of things. It was a living, breathing tapestry. The star crystal nestled against her skin, pulsed faintly, a gentle thrumming that seemed to guide her steps. The path was clear enough at first, a well-worn track used by woodcutters and foragers. But as Lyra ventured deeper, the path grew fainter, the trees taller and closer, their ancient boughs entwining overhead, creating a dappled canopy. She walked for hours, the sun slowly climbing higher in the sky. The forest was alive with sounds, the chirping of unseen birds, the rustle of small creatures in the undergrowth, the distant murmur of a stream. Lyra listened, trying to discern the weave's whispers, trying to hear the melody she had heard in her vision. It wasn't as clear here, but she felt its faint resonance, an underlying hum beneath the forest's natural symphony. As the afternoon wore on, the path dwindled to nothing more than deer trails. Lyra pulled out the elder map. The glowing line on the parchment, visible only to her, showed her veering slightly north, away from the easiest route. She tucked the map away and followed the subtle pull of the heartstone, trusting its guidance. The forest began to change. The trees grew gnarled and ancient, their trunks thick with moss and ivy. Strange luminous fungi dotted the forest floor, casting a soft, ethereal glow. The air grew cooler, carrying a faint, metallic scent. Lyra knew she was entering a part of the forest few ever ventured. Suddenly, a flash of movement caught her eye. A small, sleek fox with fur the color of burnished copper darted across her path. It stopped, turning its head, its intelligent eyes regarding her with an unnerving intensity. It didn't seem afraid. "Hello? Mono?" Lyra ventured softly. The fox tilted its head, then let out a soft bark, a sound that seemed to hold a hint of laughter. It took a few steps, then looked back at Lyra, as if inviting her to follow. The star crystal pulsed a little brighter against her chest. "Are you a part of the weave's whisper?" Lyra asked, remembering Elara's words. The fox barked again, then turned and trotted deeper into the woods, not waiting for an answer. Lyra hesitated for a moment, then remembering the heartstone's guidance and the fox's unusual behavior, she decided to follow. The fox led her off the faint game trail, through a thicket of thorny bushes that somehow parted for her without scratching her cloak, and then to a clearing Lyra would never have found on her own. In the center of the clearing stood an ancient, impossibly wide oak tree, its branches spreading like arms reaching for the sky. Its leaves shimmered with an unnatural, golden light, and its bark pulsed with a faint internal glow. "A spirit oak," Lyra whispered, recognizing it from Elara's stories. These trees were said to be ancient anchors of the weave, repositories of forest wisdom. The fox sat at the base of the tree, looking up at Lyra. It gestured with its nose towards a hollow at the tree's roots. Lyra approached cautiously. Inside the hollow, nestled amongst soft moss, was a small, intricately carved wooden flute. Its wood was dark, almost black, and felt warm to the touch. As Lyra reached for it, the star crystal hummed distinctly. The melody she had heard in her vision, faint and distant, now seemed to resonate more strongly, as if the flute itself were a conduit. She picked up the flute. It felt surprisingly light, perfectly balanced in her hand. The fox gave another soft bark, then, with a flick of its tail, melted back into the shadows of the forest, disappearing as silently as it had appeared. Lyra looked at the flute, then at the glowing spirit oak. Had the fox led her here for this? Was this part of the missing note? She tried a tentative breath into the flute, but no sound came out. It wasn't a normal instrument. It felt magical. She tucked the flute into her satchel, feeling a new sense of purpose. The heartstone pulsed steadily, confirming that this was the right path. She continued her journey, now guided not just by the star crystal's subtle pull, but also by the memory of the spirit oak and the mysterious flute. The terrain gradually began to rise. The forest floor gave way to rocky outcrops, and the air grew thinner, cooler. She was approaching the foothills of the Whispering Peaks. The trees here were stunted and wind-blasted, clinging to the rock faces with tenacious roots. The glowing line on the elder map had taken on a more vibrant hue, leading her steadily upwards. Lyra could now see the jagged silhouettes of the crystalline peaks against the fading afternoon sky, their summits glinting with a faint otherworldly light. They truly looked like mountains carved from starlight. As she ascended, a new sound began to reach her ears, a soft, almost imperceptible hum that wove through the wind. It wasn't the melody of her vision yet, but it was akin to it, a resonant drone that seemed to vibrate in the very stones beneath her feet. This, she realized, must be the whispers of the weave Alara had spoken of. The path grew steeper, more challenging. Lyra's muscles ached, but the growing strength of the hum, the steady warmth of the heartstone, and the memory of her purpose spurred her onward. She climbed through narrow ravines, scaled crumbling scree slopes, and navigated treacherous ledges, her eyes always scanning the horizon for clues, her ears straining to catch the full melody. The sun dipped below the peaks, painting the sky in fiery hues of orange and purple. The crystalline mountains absorbed the light, glowing with an internal fire that seemed to breathe. Lyra found a small sheltered alcove in the rock face, just wide enough for her to rest for the night. She wrapped herself in her cloak, the heartstone a warm ember against her skin, and drifted into a sleep filled with shimmering threads and distant resonant hums. She awoke before dawn, refreshed despite the hard ground. The air was sharp and cold, but invigorating. Above her, the stars glittered with an intensity she had never witnessed from the village, each one a tiny pinprick of the weave's boundless light. The crystalline peaks around her were glowing softly in the pre-dawn gloom, like silent sentinels watching over the world. As the first rays of the sun touched the highest peaks, casting long purple shadows down the valleys, Lyra noticed something new. Mist. Not just ordinary mist, but luminous, swirling tendrils of fog that seemed to drift upwards from the deepest ravines, coiling around the base of the mountains like sleeping dragons. The elder map, when she consulted it, showed the glowing path leading directly into these mists. And within the heart of the swirling patterns on the map, a new symbol had appeared, faintly pulsing, a stylized, silent tuning fork. The missing note. Lyra took a deep breath. The melody she had heard in her vision was now a distinct, if still fragmented, presence in the air. It flowed with the wind, echoed off the crystalline surfaces, and resonated from the very heart of the luminous mist. It was calling her, drawing her closer. She stepped towards the swirling mists, the heartstone glowing steadily, its light cutting a small path through the ethereal fog. The air inside the mist was thick and sweet, carrying the scent of ozone and something indefinably ancient. The shimmering threads of the weave were everywhere here, glowing more brightly than ever, swirling and intertwining like a cosmic dance. As she delved deeper, the mists grew thicker, obscuring her vision entirely. She could no longer see the peaks, or the ground beneath her feet. It was as if she had stepped into a cloud, or perhaps into the very fabric of the weave itself. Panic threatened to bubble up, but the steady warmth of the heartstone and the increasingly clear melody kept her grounded. The melody was now almost overwhelming, a complex symphony of light and sound, filling her ears and her very being. But within its grandeur, Lyra could still discern the broken note, the silent tuning fork, a poignant absence in the cosmic harmony. It felt like a deep ache, a wound in the heart of the world. She walked, guided by the melody in the heartstone, until the mists began to thin, revealing a breathtaking sight. She stood at the edge of a vast circular basin, ringed by the crystalline peaks. But it was not the basin itself that held her captive, it was what lay within it. In the center of the basin, rising from a shimmering pool of liquid starlight, was a structure unlike anything she had ever imagined. It was a tower, not built of stone or wood, but of pure, solidified light. It spiraled upwards, impossibly tall, its surface reflecting the light of the sun and the stars in a dazzling display of color. It hummed with power, and Lyra knew with an absolute certainty that resonated deep in her soul that this was the source of the melody. This was where the song of the weave was most vibrant and most broken. The missing note resonated from the very top of the tower, a silent call echoing across the basin. The star crystal in Lyra's pouch pulsed with a blinding brilliance, its light merging with the tower's glow. The wooden flute in her satchel felt warm, almost vibrating. She took a step forward, towards the pool of starlight, towards the glowing tower, towards the heart of the missing note. The air thrummed with ancient power, and Lyra felt the presence of something vast and timeless watching her. This was the threshold. This was where her true quest began. The air thrummed with ancient power, and Lyra felt the presence of something vast and timeless watching her. This was the threshold. This was where her true quest began. With a deep, steadying breath, Lyra stepped out of the soft grass and into the shimmering pool of starlight. It wasn't water, not truly. It was a liquid luminosity, cool and weightless, swirling around her ankles, then her knees, rising until she was fully submerged. Yet she didn't drown. Instead, she in-breathed in the light, drawing it into her lungs like the purest mountain air. Each inhaled particle of starlight filled her with a gentle energy, a quiet hum that resonated with the star crystal in her pouch, which pulsed now like a second heart. The world outside the pool, the moonlit basin, the distant mountains, the ancient trees, blurred and dissolved, replaced by a swirling nebula of indigo, violet, and silver. She was no longer walking on solid ground, but floating in a cosmic current, drawn inexorably towards the glowing tower at the pool's heart. The tower, which from afar had seemed to be made of polished stone, now revealed itself as something far more ethereal. Its walls weren't solid, but woven from threads of pure moonlight and condensed starlight, shimmering with an inner radiance that was both gentle and profound. As she drifted closer, a silent, resonant chord vibrated through the luminous ether. It wasn't a sound heard with her ears, but felt in every cell of her being, a harmony so vast it encompassed the very fabric of existence. The wooden flute in her satchel, now warm and almost buzzing, seemed to sing along to this silent symphony, a faint, unheard melody echoing the cosmic tune. Lyra reached the base of the tower. There was no door, no visible entrance. But as she extended a hand, the shimmering wall rippled like disturbed water, parting to reveal an archway bathed in a soft, welcoming glow. Hesitation was a fleeting thought. The pull of the tower, the promise of the missing note, was too strong. She passed through the luminous threshold, and the shimmering wall closed silently behind her, leaving her standing within a space that defied all earthly architecture. The interior of the tower was not a series of rooms, but a single, spiraling ascent of pure light. There were no stairs, no walls in the conventional sense. Instead, platforms of solidified starlight, translucent and faintly iridescent, floated in a gentle spiral, leading ever upwards into a dizzying expanse of shimmering blues and silvers. Above her, the tower tapered into a distant point, pierced by countless pinpricks of light that seemed to be not stars, but echoes of them, held captive within the tower's ethereal structure. Below, the starlight pool pulsed like a giant, tranquil heart. The air inside was cool and still, carrying the faintest scent of night-blooming jasmine and ancient dust. A soft, continuous hum filled the space, a sound so subtle it was almost silence, yet it was undeniably there, a fundamental frequency of the tower itself. Lyra felt a sense of profound peace, as if she had stepped into a place where time flowed differently, where worries simply faded away. She took a tentative step onto the first starlight platform. It was firm beneath her feet, yet felt like walking on solidified dreams. The platform beneath her glowed brighter for a moment, then pulsed gently, as if acknowledging her presence. The star crystal in her pouch flared again, its light projecting a shimmering path from her platform to the next, a silent invitation to ascend. As she began her climb, she noticed murals woven into the very fabric of the luminous walls. They weren't painted but seemed to shift and reform, images coalescing from the starlight itself. They depicted scenes of cosmic creation, swirling nebulae giving birth to suns, planets orbiting in perfect harmony, beings of pure light dancing amidst the stars. And in many of these murals there were figures, graceful, slender forms with eyes like distant galaxies, holding instruments made of light and shadow, playing melodies that seemed to ripple through the very tapestry of the cosmos. These, she realized, must be the Star Weavers, the ancient beings whose magic had shaped this tower, and perhaps the world itself. One particular mural caught her eye. It depicted a grand cosmic orchestra, with planets as percussion, suns as brass, and comets as the flowing strings. But in the center, where a conductor should have stood, there was an empty space, a void that shimmered with a faint, sorrowful gray. And from this void, a single silent ripple emanated, a dissonance in the grand celestial harmony. This, she knew, was a depiction of the missing note. Not a sound, but an absence, a fundamental imbalance. As she gazed at it, the wooden flute in her satchel vibrated more insistently, a soft, urgent thrum. She took it out, holding it gently. It was warm to the touch, humming with a low, resonant energy. It felt different now, more alive, as if it had awakened in the tower's potent magical field. She continued her ascent, each step on the starlight platforms feeling lighter, more natural. The hum of the tower grew subtly louder, weaving itself into the very fabric of her thoughts. After what felt like an age, but could have been mere minutes in this timeless space, she reached a wider platform, a circular chamber that seemed to be the first significant stop in her journey. This chamber was open to the spiraling light of the tower above and below, but its walls were adorned with what appeared to be immense crystalline chimes, hanging suspended in the air. They were of various sizes, some as tall as trees, others as small as her thumb, each carved from a different luminous crystal, moonstone, sunstone, starlight quartz, and gems Lyra had never seen, glittering with inner fire. They hung in perfect silence, motionless, yet she felt a deep potential within them, a dormant song waiting to be awakened. In the center of the chamber, a pedestal of swirling starlight held a bowl-like depression, filled with the same liquid luminosity she had first stepped into. As Lyra approached, the star crystal in her pouch pulsed rapidly, and then, without conscious thought, she found herself reaching for it. It slipped from the pouch, cool and smooth in her palm, radiating a soft, steady glow that filled the chamber with an even brighter light. As the star crystal settled into the starlight bowl, a ripple of energy spread outwards. The crystalline chimes around the chamber began to hum, a faint, almost imperceptible vibration. A soft, musical chime rang out, clear as a mountain spring, as one of the smaller moonstone chimes began to glow, then another, and another, until the chamber was alight with a symphony of silent, visual notes. Each chime pulsed with its own unique color and intensity, a silent orchestra of light. But there was a problem. Lyra could see the individual notes, the vibrant colors and rhythms, but she couldn't hear them. The harmony was incomplete, a stunning visual spectacle lacking its sonic counterpart. And amongst the glowing chimes, she noticed gaps, spaces where a chime should have been, or where a chime hung dark and unresponsive. These were the dissonances, the quiet voids in the tower's song. She understood now. The missing note wasn't just a pony note, it was the entire spectrum of forgotten sounds, the lost melodies that composed the world's true harmony. And this chamber was a test, a puzzle designed to teach her how to perceive and restore these lost sounds. The wooden flute in her hand began to glow faintly, mirroring the light of the star crystal. Its warmth intensified, and she felt an intuitive urge to raise it to her lips. She didn't know what to play. She was no master musician, just a simple girl from a quiet village. But as she brought the flute up, her fingers found the holes with an uncanny instinct, as if guided by an unseen hand. She blew gently. No sound emerged, not at first. Only a faint shimmering breath like mist catching the moonlight. Oi. But as this luminous breath touched the still air, it swirled, coalescing into a delicate, silvery wisp that drifted towards one of the dark, silent chimes. The chime, a large, dark piece of obsidian-like crystal, absorbed the silvery mist. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, a deep, resonant tone, rich as the earth itself, vibrated through the chamber. A sound Lyra felt in her bones rather than heard with her ears. The obsidian chime pulsed with a deep, earthy green light, joining the silent visual symphony. A gasp escaped her lips. The flute wasn't making sound in the traditional sense. It was awakening the resonance within the crystals, coaxing their inherent song into being. It was a flute that played not notes, but Wi-Fi. Encouraged, Lyra tried again. She looked at another dark chime, a slender, almost invisible crystal that seemed to shimmer like heat haze. She focused her intent, feeling the silent visual note it exhaled make, a high, ethereal shimmer. She blew into the flute, and this time, a delicate, almost invisible thread of light emanated from it, weaving its way to the shimmering crystal. A sound like distant, tinkling bells filled the chamber, light and airy, accompanied by a bright, cerulean glow from the chime. It was like magic, a profound connection between her will, the flute, and the ancient crystals. She spent what felt like hours in that chamber, moving from one silent chime to another, guiding the flute's luminous breath. Some chimes responded easily, their songs blooming forth with gentle encouragement. Others were more stubborn, requiring a deeper focus, a more heartfelt intent. For these, Lyra had to close her eyes, feeling the absence of their sound, imagining the missing harmony, and pouring that imaginative energy into the flute. With each awakened chime, the chamber grew brighter, the silent symphony of light and felt sound becoming richer, more complex. The star crystal in the starlight bowl pulsed in time with the emerging harmony, its central glow intensifying. Lyra felt herself changing too, her senses sharpening, her understanding of sound and resonance deepening with every successful note. She began to perceive not just the presence of sounds, but the subtle vibrations that underpinned all existence. Finally, only one chime remained silent. It was a massive, ancient-looking crystal at the very top of the chamber, almost touching the spiraling light above. It was dark, deeply scarred, and seemed to absorb all light and sound around it, a stark void in the growing symphony. This, she instinctively knew, was the most important one. It felt like the heart of the chamber's silence. Lyra approached it, her heart thrumming. The flute in her hand felt heavy now, charged with the energy of all the awakened sounds. She looked at the dark crystal, sensing its ancient sorrow, its profound silence. This was not just an absence of sound, but an absence of hope, of connection. This was a silence born of deep loss. She closed her eyes, placing the flute against her lips. This time, she didn't just imagine a sound or a color. She imagined the feeling that was missing from the crystal, the joy of belonging, the warmth of connection, the quiet strength of shared purpose. She breathed it all into the flute, a silent prayer, a heartfelt offering. From the flute's mouth came not a wisp of light, but a shimmering golden mist, thick and radiant. It drifted towards the ancient crystal, surrounding it, embracing it. For a long moment, nothing happened. The chamber held its breath. Then, slowly, the dark crystal began to glow from within. A deep, resonant hum, vast as the cosmos and comforting as a lullaby, emanated from it. It was a sound that seemed to encompass all the other notes, to bind them together, to give them meaning. It was the fundamental chord, the anchor of the symphony. The crystal pulsed with a gentle, golden light, warm and inviting. As the final chime joined the chorus, the entire chamber erupted in a silent crescendo of light and felt sound. The air itself shimmered, vibrating with a harmony so profound it brought tears to Lyra's eyes. The star crystal in the bowl pulsed with blinding brilliance, and then, slowly, it lifted itself from the starlight, floating back into her outstretched hand. The starlight bowl beneath it began to swirl, then to sink, revealing a new path. This was not another starlight platform but a shimmering archway, leading into a deeper, more profound part of the tower. It pulsed with a soft, inviting light, beckoning her onward. Lyra felt a surge of triumph, and a deeper understanding of her quest. The missing note wasn't a single sound to be found, but a tapestry of forgotten harmonies to be rewoven. The flute was her tool, her voice, capable of awakening the dormant magic within the world. And the star crystal was her guide, her beacon, illuminating the path forward. She looked back at the now singing chamber, its crystalline chimes glowing with a silent, vibrant joy. She had brought a piece of the world's lost song back to life. With new determination, Lyra stepped through the shimmering archway, ready to face the next challenge, to uncover more of the universe's lost melodies. The tower's hum, now richer and more complete, embraced her as she ventured deeper into its heart. She knew this was just the beginning of truly understanding the cosmic music. The tower's hum, now richer and more complete, embraced her as she ventured deeper into its heart. She knew this was just the beginning of truly understanding the cosmic music. The archway shimmered and solidified behind her, leaving Lyra in a softly glowing corridor of polished obsidian. The air here was cooler, carrying a faint, sweet scent she couldn't quite place, perhaps of ancient stone and starlight. The hum of the tower, which had once been a distant vibration, now resonated within her very bones, a gentle, guiding pulse. She walked on, her steps light, her heart brimming with a quiet anticipation. The corridor opened into a vast, circular chamber, so immense its ceiling was lost in shadows, yet it felt strangely intimate. This was the gallery of echoing silencing. The walls here were not obsidian, but woven from what looked like solidified starlight, absorbing every stray sound. It was a place of profound quiet, a silence so deep it felt almost tangible, like a soft blanket wrapped around her. Lyra reached out a hand, tracing the cool, smooth surface of a star-woven wall. No sound. She hummed a note, a soft, tentative melody. It died almost instantly, swallowed by the profound stillness. Yet, as she stood there, truly listening to the hub's sense of sound, she began to perceive something else. Not sound itself, but the memory of sound. Faint, ghostly whispers seemed to rise from the very fabric of the chamber, like echoes from a dream. These weren't distinct melodies, but fragments, impressions. The gentle rustle of leaves from a long-lost forest. The distant murmur of an ancient sea. The soft, rhythmic beat of a forgotten drum. They were the ghosts of sounds, trapped in the deep silence. To awaken this chamber, Lyra realized, she couldn't simply make noise. She had to coax the echoes back to life. She closed her eyes, focusing not on projecting sound, but on receiving it, on reaching into the silence and pulling forth its hidden stories. She remembered the crystalline chimes, their silent song. She remembered the rhythm of the universe, the pulse she had felt in the previous chamber. Taking a deep breath, Lyra began to hum again, but this time, it was different. It wasn't a sound she pushed out, but a vibration she allowed to resonate within in her, letting it seep into the silence around her. It was a hum of pure intent, of listening, of gentle invitation. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, the whispers in the chamber began to solidify. The rustle of leaves became clearer, the murmur of the sea gained a gentle ebb and flow. The drumbeat pulsed with a newfound strength. Lyra didn't play a melody, she became a conduit for the chamber's own forgotten music. She let her internal hum resonate with each faint echo, amplifying it, giving it strength. The walls of solidified starlight began to shimmer, not with light, but with a vibrant, ethereal sound. The echoes converged, intertwining into a foundational hum, a deep, resonant tone that felt like the very bedrock of existence. It was the sound of primal creation, of the universe before it had fully burst into song, a soft, sustained drone that promised all melodies yet to come. A new archway woven from pure light and resonating with this fundamental hum, opened on the far side of the gallery. Lyra smiled, a profound sense of satisfaction washing over her. She had learned to listen not just to what was heard, but to what was remembered. Stepping through, she found herself in a place of breathtaking beauty, the arboretum of luminescent blooms. This chamber was a verdant paradise, a soaring conservatory where impossible plants thrived under a soft internal light. Massive trees with leaves of iridescent crystal reached towards the unseen ceiling, their branches hung with glowing bell-shaped flowers. Vines draped like emerald ribbons, studded with blossoms that pulsed with gentle light and emitted soft individual tones. The air here was warm and sweet, filled with the mingled scents of nectar and damp earth. Every bloom, every leaf, every crystal branch hummed with its own unique note, creating a complex, ever-shifting tapestry of sound. It was a natural orchestra, but one that seemed to lack a conductor. The melodies were beautiful, but disparate, like 1,000 individual voices singing different, lovely songs. Lyra walked among the glowing flora, her fingers brushing against velvety petals and smooth, crystalline bark. She listened intently, trying to discern the patterns, the hidden harmonies. A bellflower chimed a clear C note. A nearby vine pulsed with an F-sharp, do. A giant, lily-like bloom thrummed a deep G. This chamber was a test of harmony, she realized. Not just individual notes, but how they related to each other, how they could be woven into a cohesive whole. She remembered her own attempts to layer melodies, to find the perfect counterpoint. She began to sing, a soft, improvisational melody, letting her voice intertwine with the existing sounds. As she sang, she noticed a subtle change. The blooms nearest her seemed to brighten, their tones becoming clearer, more vibrant, odd. She reached out and gently touched a bellflower, holding the note she sang. The flower pulsed, its light intensifying, its tone resonating perfectly with hers. Lyra spent what felt like hours moving through the arboretum, interacting with the plants. She sang to them, hummed with them, sometimes even danced a slow, swaying dance, letting her body interpret the rhythm of their growth. She discovered that by arranging certain flowers, by coaxing particular vines to entwine, she could influence the overall soundscape. She became a gardener of sound, a choreographer of light and melody. Slowly, carefully, she began to guide the disparate voices. She encouraged the deep tones to form a foundation, the higher notes to dance above them. She found the resonant frequencies that made different blooms sing together in perfect accord. She layered the sounds, built chords, and wove gentle arpeggios through the shimmering air. As her composition grew, the arboretum responded with astonishing vitality. The crystal trees vibrated, with a deep, sonorous bass. The bellflowers rang out with chimes of exquisite clarity. The glowing vines pulsed in rhythmic harmony. The entire chamber became a living symphony, a breathtaking blend of light and sound, a vibrant organic melody that spoke of life, growth, and the interconnectedness of all living things. The melody swelled, reaching a crescendo of breathtaking beauty, then gently faded into a sustained, perfect chord that resonated with warmth and vitality. A final archway, wreathed in glowing vines and pulsating with the very breath of life, opened before her. Lyra stepped through, her spirit lightened by the verdant music. She had understood the language of growth, the harmony of life itself. This new chamber was unlike any she had encountered. It was not a space of grand, sweeping vistas, but one of quiet power. The walls were made of a dark, polished wood, inlaid with shimmering silver lines that formed intricate, ancient symbols. In the center, on a raised dais, sat a figure. This was the Yeoral Sentinel Z. The sentinel was neither old nor young, neither male nor female. It was made of solidified light, shifting and rippling like water, yet utterly still. Its form was humanoid, but ethereal, its features indistinct, save for eyes that glowed with an ancient, knowing wisdom. It sat cross-legged, hands resting on its knees, radiating an aura of profound peace and immense power. "Welcome, Lyra." The sentinel's voice was not heard with her ears, but resonated directly within her mind, a symphony of gentle tones. "You have woven the silent hum, and conducted the living chord. You have proven your ears can hear beyond sound, and your heart can feel the rhythm of life." Lyra bowed her head respectfully. "I seek the cosmic music," she said, her voice clear and steady. "The lost melodies of the universe." "And what will you do with them, little seeker?" The sentinel's gaze intensified, though it remained gentle. "Will you keep them for yourself? Will you wield them as power? Or will you simply listen?" "I don't know," Lyra admitted, her honesty unwavering. "I only know that the world feels incomplete without them. I feel incomplete. I believe the universe yearns to sing its full song again. I wish to help it remember." The sentinel considered her words. A noble intent, yet fraught with peril. The cosmic music is not merely a collection of melodies, but the very fabric of existence. To reawaken it is to touch the threads of creation itself. Many have sought it, for power, for glory, for immortality. All have failed, for they sought to take it, not to serve it. "I wish only to serve it," Lyra said, her conviction absolute. "To be its channel, its voice, if that is what it asks of me. Then let us see if your spirit is truly aligned with its purpose," the sentinel replied. Around them, the silver lines on the wooden walls began to glow, forming intricate patterns of light. From these patterns melodies began to emerge, not from instruments but from the very air. They were complex, interwoven tapestries of sound, ancient lullabies, cosmic battle hymns, the lament of dying stars, the joyous bursts of new galaxies. They shifted and flowed, sometimes harmonious, sometimes clashing in purposeful dissonance. "Listen, Lyra," the sentinel commanded. "These are fragments of the cosmic song as it once was, and as it might yet be. Find the dissonances that hinder its flow. Discover the silences that yearn to be filled. And most importantly, feel the core, the true heart of its purpose." This was the hardest challenge yet. It wasn't about creating music, but about understanding it on a profound existential level. Lyra closed her eyes, letting the torrent of sound wash over her. She recognized echoes of the crystalline chimes, the whispering winds, the foundational hum, the living chord. All her previous lessons were woven into this grand, chaotic symphony. She focused, not on individual notes, but on the eye feeling of the music. She sensed moments where a melody seemed to trip, where a harmony felt strained, where a rhythm faltered. She saw with her inner eye the emotional landscape of the music. Places of sorrow that needed solace, places of anger that needed resolution, places of emptiness that needed hope. As she listened, Lyra began to hum, a soft, almost imperceptible counter-melody. It wasn't a note to change the existing music, but a thread of pure empathy, a gentle suggestion of balance. When a dissonant chord grated, she hummed a note that didn't cancel it, but offered a path to resolution. When a silence felt stark and empty, she filled it with a breath of anticipation, a promise of sound to come. She wasn't judging the music, but nurturing it, guiding it towards its own inherent perfection. The sentinel watched, its glowing eyes unwavering. Lyra hummed the song of compassion, the melody of understanding. She felt the grand cosmic symphony begin to align, to breathe with a deeper, more unified purpose. The chaotic fragments started to weave themselves into a coherent narrative, a story told through pure sound. Finally, the myriad melodies coalesced into a single breathtakingly beautiful overture. It was a song of infinite possibilities, of cosmic ballet, of universal connection. It was the song of eight being. The silver lines on the walls faded, and the chamber returned to its quiet power. The sentinel gazed at Lyra, a faint shimmer of approval emanating from its form. "You have listened with your soul, Lyra," it said, its voice resonating with newfound warmth. "You have understood that the cosmic music is not about perfection, but about balance, not about control, but about harmony. You seek not to possess, but to empower. The path is open." A final archway, shimmering with all the colors of the universe and resonating with the complete, harmonious overture she had just helped to form, materialized behind the sentinel. Lyra walked through, her heart thrumming with excitement and a profound sense of destiny. She was ready. She stepped into what felt like the heart of creation itself. This was the grand orrery of harmonic spheres Dano. It was not a chamber, but an infinite void, filled with luminous rotating spheres of every size and color. Each sphere was a celestial body, a galaxy, a nebula, a star, a planet, all spinning in a silent cosmic dance. And each one hummed with its own faint, unique tone, a celestial choir waiting for its conductor. In the very center of this breathtaking expanse, suspended as if by pure starlight, was a shimmering crystalline podium. It radiated a gentle, inviting light. This was where she was meant to stand. Lyra approached the podium, feeling the immensity of the task, yet also a powerful surge of exhilaration. All her journey, all her lessons, all the fragments she had recovered, had led her to this moment. The crystalline chimes, the whispering winds, the shifting sands, the silent hum, the luminescent blooms, they were all within her, living parts of her understanding. She placed her hands on the crystalline podium. It pulsed with warmth, connecting her to every sphere, every distant star, every silent planet. Taking a deep breath, Lyra closed her eyes, letting the individual hums of the cosmic orrery fill her. Then, she began to sing. It was not a song she had learned, but one that welled up from the deepest parts of her being, a melody born of stardust and dreams. Her voice, clear and pure, became the initial thread. As she sang, the crystalline podium beneath her hands began to glow brighter, sending shimmering waves of light and sound throughout the void. The spheres responded. The nearest planets brightened, their faint hums growing into rich resonant tones. Distant galaxies flared, their spirals of stars tracing intricate, arpeggiated patterns of light and sound. Nebulae unfurled like cosmic curtains, revealing new melodies, shimmering with spectral harmonies. Lyra wasn't just singing, she was conducting. Her hands, guided by instinct and the deep wisdom she had gained, moved in sweeping gestures, shaping the very fabric of sound. She wove the silence of the gallery of echoing silence into moments of profound cosmic stillness. She called upon the vibrant growth of the arboretum of luminescent blooms to create swells of joyous, life-affirming chords. She drew upon the foundational hum, the raw energy of creation, to give the entire symphony its immense power. The cosmic music swelled, becoming an overture of unimaginable grandeur. It was the song of creation itself, the birth of stars, the slow dance of galaxies, the quiet contemplation of ancient planets, the vibrant pulse of life emerging from primordial waters, the laughter of children, the wisdom of elders, the sorrow of loss, the joy of reunion. Every emotion, every experience, every speck of matter and energy in the universe was a note, a rhythm, a harmony in this boundless symphony. Lyra felt herself dissolving into the music, becoming one with the universe. She was the conductor, the instrument, and the song itself. Light erupted from the tower's pinnacle, piercing the heavens and showering the world below in a cascade of shimmering starlight. Those on the ground, wherever they were, felt a sudden surge of peace, a profound sense of belonging, a forgotten melody stirring in their hearts. The world seemed to breathe a collective sigh of contentment. Slowly, gently, the cosmic music began to recede, not fading into silence, but settling into a deep, pervasive hum that now permeated everything. It was no longer a lost song, but an ever-present melody, woven into the fabric of reality, whispering in the wind, shimmering in the light, echoing in the quiet spaces between heartbeats. Lyra stood at the crystalline podium, tears of profound joy and exhaustion streaming down her face. She was still herself, but profoundly changed. The universe was no longer a vast, silent mystery, but a friend, singing softly beside her. The oral sentinel appeared beside her, its form radiating a gentle approval. The universe remembers its song, Lyra. It resonated within her mind. And it remembers you, its keeper, its voice. Lyra looked out at the now softly glowing orrery. The spheres still spun, their individual hums now perfectly integrated into the pervasive cosmic melody. It was never truly lost, was it? She whispered, her voice still trembling with residual music. Only forgotten, waiting to be remembered. Indeed, the sentinel affirmed. And now, the music lives within all things, within all beings. But it will always need a heart to listen, and a voice to remind. Lyra knew then what her purpose was. She wouldn't stay in the tower, guarding the music. She would carry it with her, into the world. She would be a wandering minstrel, a bard of the cosmic song, sharing its beauty, helping others to hear the melodies within themselves, to remember the harmony that connected them all. She walked out of the tower, feeling the gentle hum of the universe in every step. The world outside looked the same, yet it felt utterly transformed. The leaves rustled with a clearer rhythm, the wind whistled a sweeter tune, even the silence held a richer depth. The tower, its purpose fulfilled, now stood as a silent monument, a beacon of rediscovered harmony, its light a steady pulse against the night sky. Lyra found a quiet meadow, lay down in the soft grass and closed her eyes. The stars above twinkled with a newfound brilliance, each a tiny note in the grand, unending symphony. The moon shone down like a gentle conductor, and the earth beneath her hummed a lullaby of peace. She drifted off to sleep, feeling the universe sing with her, a beautiful, eternal melody echoing in her heart. And she knew with profound certainty that the cosmic music would never be truly lost again, for it now lived in every soul, waiting to be heard.